This is a sample of my FPGA boards collection that I either bought or designed myself. The FPGA chips here are from different vendors like Xilinx, Altera, Lattice, Gowin, Efinix, etc. And typically you would have to use the corresponding JTAG cable for each FPGA vendor. But what if I told you that we can replace all of these cables with a Raspberry Pi Pico board to program any FPGA board you have? For today's experiment, I will use this Lattice ECP5 FPGA board that I picked up on AliExpress a while ago. But you can do the same using any FPGA board you have around that has a JTAG interface. The Pi Pico will load the Bitstream files directly to the FPGA chip and also write it permanently to the external configuration SPI Flash memory. If this sounds interesting to you, then keep watching and let's get right into it. And big thanks to JLCPCB for sponsoring this video and providing the PCBs we will see today and in the future. More on them later in the video. And let's start with OpenFPGALoader. This is the main tool we're gonna use today. It's an open source utility for programming FPGAs from different vendors. We can download this tool on our PC and start programming all sorts of FPGA devices from Xilinx, AMD, Altera, etc. And here is the GitHub repo for this OpenFPGALoader project. And here we can find the compatible FPGA devices and also the cables that are supported by this tool currently. There are so many FPGA families or devices supported by this tool currently from all the major vendors. You can refer to this list to check if your FPGA is currently supported by the OpenFPGALoader or not. And here are the compatible cables. There are so many cables here supported by the OpenFPGALoader, as you can see here in this list. And the one that I'm searching for is the DirtyJTAG. This is the cable that I'm going to use in this tutorial. And we will see how to use the Pi Pico board as a DirtyJTAG device and use it with the OpenFPGALoader to program any kind of FPGA that is supported here in this list. And now let's take a closer look at the DirtyJTAG project. It's a firmware project designed to turn any of these cheap microcontrollers into a USB to JTAG adapter. And here is a link to the DirtyJTAG repo on GitHub. It supports all of these microcontrollers. We can use the STM32 Blue Bell or the USB dongle or any of these microcontrollers. I'm gonna use the Raspberry Pi Pico board. For the DirtyJTAG project, we can find the OpenFPGALoader. It's one of the supported tools. So here is the Pi Pico DirtyJTAG project. We can download this firmware project from this repo, and here is an explanation for the pinout for the DirtyJTAG interface. And we can also reconfigure or remap these pins to any of the compatible pins, but you need to read the documentation here. You just need to modify the configurations here in the DirtyJTAG configuration.h file, and that's how you do it. You should also note that this project also gives you up to 2 UART interfaces over the USB CDC that will be running in parallel to the USB JTAG interface. So when you connect your Pi Pico board to your PC, it will get detected as a USB to JTAG interface, which are these pins, and you will also have 2 USB CDC devices over the same USB communication. One of them is routed to this UART device, and the other one is routed to the other UART interface here, and you can reconfigure or change these pins using the same configuration header file. And now the question is, why would I use the OpenFPGALoader and the DirtyJTAG projects? The first reason is cost optimization. I've been using the FTDI chips as USB to JTAG adapters in most of my custom FPGA hardware designs. However, it's not a cheap solution. This single FTDI chip here on this board costs like $12 given that it was somewhat an expensive project with a large FPGA and so on, so it was acceptable to have an expensive FTDI chip. However, if we take a look at another project like this one, this is a low-cost Lattice FPGA device and that costs like around $5, and in this case a $12 FTDI chip doesn't seem right to be used here. So it's gonna be a great success if we can replace this FTDI chip and its whole schematic page from my designs and replace it with a microcontroller that costs only $1. And another reason for using those tools is the universal FPGA support. As we have seen earlier, there are so many FPGA devices here supported by these projects. And the last reason is, if you are into using open source FPGA tools like Yosys, Next, PNR, etc., then you are already staying away from the official FPGA vendor tool chains and hardware and so on. Therefore, using tools like OpenFPGALoader will be the right thing to do. The ultimate goal for us here is to replace the FTDI USB to JTAG interface and use a Raspberry Pi Pico instead. And here we are. This is a Pi Pico on my board acting as a USB to JTAG adapter. I'm using it to program this low-cost lattice FPGA chip, and we will take a deeper look on this PCB project very soon here on the channel. And now let's start installing the tools that we need. First of all is the Pico-JTAG project, which we can download here from this repo. And after downloading this project, we will open it in VS Code, and you can change the DirtyJTAG configurations header file if you want to enable multiple UARTs over the USB CDC communication. If you want to change the I/O pins or any other configuration you want to change, then you will have to compile or build the whole project. After successfully building your project, you will find the output here in this build directory, and you will search for the UF2 file. This is the output file. This is what we need to flash to our Pi Pico board. So I will click once on the boot button you see here and reconnect my board. And here we are in the bootloader mode. So we will drag and drop the UF2 file, and our firmware will get loaded on the Pi Pico. And there you have it. Now your Pi Pico board will act as a DirtyJTAG device. And the next step is to install the MSys2 on Windows devices. It's a collection of tools and libraries, package manager, etc. And we will use this environment's terminal to install the OpenFPGALoader in the next step. So you will just open this link, download the tool and install it on your device. And in the next step, we will open the MSys2 and install the OpenFPGALoader utility using this command. So I will open MSys2, but I have it already installed on my machine, so I will not run this command. And in the next step here, we are just checking for the OpenFPGALoader installation. I'm just checking the version number to check if it's already installed properly or not. So we will open the UART terminal. Here we are, and I will check for the version number of the OpenFPGALoader. And as you can see, it's already installed on my machine, and this is the version number. And the next step is to install the ZDIG tool, which we use to change the USB drivers for any device on our machine. And we will replace the default Windows drivers for the Pi Pico with the WinUSB. It has to be a WinUSB driver. In this tool, we will have to open the options and list all devices. And here is the DirtyJTAG device for my Pi Pico. And as you can see, it's already a WinUSB driver. If it's not at your side, then you need to change it with a WinUSB driver. You can also see here that the DirtyJTAG device is also detected as a USB CDC1 and CDC0. There are two USB CDC devices for the DirtyJTAG. And you shouldn't change the driver for these devices. You just need to change the DirtyJTAG interface only, this one. And in the next step, we will have to connect our Pi Pico board to our FPGA board. Depending on the actual FPGA board that you are using for this experiment, you will have to check its JTAG pinout, and you will also have to power up your board from a different source. So let me power up my board and get ready to the next step. And as you can see, my FPGA board here is powered up. My Pi Pico is connected to the USB. It's now acting as a DirtyJTAG device. This command here is used to detect the FPGA device connected to the DirtyJTAG cable. If the DirtyJTAG cable itself is not detected or the FPGA is not detected, this will give us an error. So let me run this command here. And as you can see, it has already detected my FPGA device and everything looks perfect. If you are using a different FPGA, you will see the device ID of the actual FPGA you are using if you are following the same steps I'm showing here. And in the next step, we will see how to do a bitstream loading to the FPGA RAM or the external SPI Flash memory. And for this to work, you need to change the directory to the actual bitstream file location. And then you'll have to run this command to send the bitstream file to the FPGA RAM memory. Or you can run this command to write the bitstream file permanently on the external SPI Flash memory. We will test both bitstream loading commands in two different demo examples. But first, let's take a quick word from our today's sponsor. JLCPCB is one of the largest PCB manufacturers in China. They offer amazing quality services for affordable and competitive prices. You can get up to 4 layers PCB, 5 pieces for only $2, and up to 8 layers for 5 by 5 centimeters PCB for only $2 as well. They also offer flexible PCBs, very affordable PCB assembly service with a huge stock of parts that you can get for very affordable prices as well. They also have a high quality 3D printing service and CNC machining service and a huge stock of mechanical parts that you can use for your projects. Register for a new account using the link in my description and you will get a $60 discount coupon. I didn't want to spoil this upcoming project, but I have just received the PCBs from JLCPCB and they look amazing. As you can see here, I'm having a low-cost lattice FPGA chip and a Raspberry Pi Pico microcontroller acting acting as a USB to JTAG adapter. And we will see how it actually works in a future video. And let's get back to our first demo example project, which is just a push button being assigned to an LED. The reason I'm doing this, because if you can see my board here, the way this board designed makes the LEDs have inverted logic. So writing a 1 to any LED will turn it off and vice versa. That's why here I'm writing 1s to the high 3 bits or high 3 LEDs, and the lowest significant one is being assigned the push button state. So whenever I push this button, the least significant LED should be responding. Now there is nothing happening on the FPGA, so we will have to do the synthesis for this Verilog code and send the bitstream file to the FPGA. For this, I'm using the Lattice Diamond. This is the tool chain that I'm using for the ECB5 FPGA from Lattice. You can use any other tool chain depending on the actual FPGA that you are using to follow this tutorial, and just make sure that you are following the schematic of the actual board you are using while doing the constraints or assigning the IO pins in the constraints file. Here I will run the synthesis tool and wait for it to complete. And now I'm ready to load my bitstream file to the FPGA. So I will go to the directory where my bitstream file is located. This is the main projects folder, and this is where our bitstream file is located. So I will copy this path. I will change directory to that path. And now let's run this command to send our bitstream file to the FPGA. This is my bitstream file name, and this is the whole command. To run this command, I will hit enter, and boom, the bitstream has been loaded to my FPGA. I'm not sure if it's very clear or not, but the LEDs are now turned off except the power LED, and when I hit this button, the least significant LED is now responding. And this is exactly what we want to see. Now if I hit this reset button, as you can see, the FPGA design has been wiped out because it was actually stored on the SRAM memory of the FPGA chip. Now what we want to do is to store the bitstream file permanently on this external SPI configuration flash memory. So even if we do a hard reset, the FPGA will pull the last saved design or bitstream from the external SPI flash memory. We are calling the OpenFPGALoader tool using the cable that's named DirtyJTAG, and we are writing to the flash, and here is our bitstream file, and here is the write to flash command. We will run this command, and it's currently in progress. After erasing, it's writing, and it has done a hard reset, and here is our design. Let's give it another test. I'm not sure if you can actually see the LED. Okay, now our LED is responding, and if I do a hard reset, boom, now we can say that our design is permanently saved on the external SPI flash memory. And this is how you do it. Let's take another demo example project. Here we are going to instantiate a UART transmitter module and a UART receiver module in Verilog, and we will loop them back together on the FPGA side. And we will connect it to the Pi Pico UART over USB CDC. As we have seen here in this Pi Pico project, we can use any one of these UART modules or both of them together. And this is the Verilog code for the UART receiver and transmitter instantiation and the loopback connection. And let me open the camera again. Our Pi Pico USB going to the PC is detected as a USB JTAG adapter and also two CDC devices. So the first CDC device is routed to the internal UART module of the Pi Pico, and the UART module of the Pi Pico is connected here to the two pins of the FPGA to the UART modules that I have instantiated on the FPGA, the receiver and transmitter, and I have looped them back together. So when I send a message over USB CDC, it will be received by the Pi Pico UART, and it will be transmitted to the FPGA UART, which will loop it back to the RX of the Pi Pico UART, and I will see it back again on my USB CDC communication. So it looks like a bit long loop back for the serial communication, just to make sure that we are able to use the two UARTs of the Pi Pico with our FPGA in parallel to the USB JTAG function of the Pi Pico. And now I have already loaded my bitstream file to the FPGA and done the loopback test by sending a message from the PC terminal, and I have already get the echo from the FPGA, and this verifies that everything is actually working as expected. And before concluding this tutorial, we have seen how to use the OpenFPGALoader and the DirtyJTAG project together and write bitstream files to the FPGA, write it permanently to the external SPI flash memory. It was so fast, no issues or whatsoever. So the question, is there any limits to this kind of setup? There actually are. There are some limits. And let's start with the FPGA compatibility. If you take a careful look here, you will find that not all FPGA devices are supported. There are many FPGA devices that are not currently supported here. So if you are using a device that is not supported here in the OpenFPGALoader, it will not work. In a previous video, I have shown using an Altera Cyclone 10 FPGA with the Raspberry Pi Pico, but I couldn't use the Pi Pico to program the actual FPGA chip because this is the only Cyclone 10 FPGA chip that is supported by the OpenFPGALoader, which was not the one that I was using. And the next thing we will lose, obviously, is the official toolchain support. The official toolchains like Xilinx, Vivado, Altera Quartz, Prime, Lattice Diamond, and all of these tools have a built-in programmer system or hardware manager that will not detect your device. If you are using this combo, DirtyJTAG, OpenFPGALoader, etc., these are not going to be picked up by the official tools. Like here, if I open the Lattice Diamond and I go to the programmer, it's not going to detect my cable because it's not a supported one. The same goes for Xilinx Vivado, Altera Quartz, Prime. All of these tool chains are not going to pick up your hardware. But here is an example project that I would like to show you. Maybe we will have to investigate this or try it in another video, because this is a Windows wrapper functions or scripts for the USB drivers that handles the USB device attachment and detachment. And apparently it looks like a successful project because here he is using the OpenFPGALoader and he is able to detect it in the hardware manager of Vivado, which I consider a very promising step and a project that needs to be investigated in the future. And that's a wrap for today's tutorial, and I will see you in the next one.